Number 10. Rare blood disease. What's a Hulk to do when they lack control over their own monstrous transformation? Why, recruit a vampire to help you do so, of course. Monster to monster, so to speak. Before She-Hulk could control her transformation, she would become the Hulk in a similar way to Bruce, whenever she got angry. It wasn't until Savage She-Hulk issue 11 and 12 where she almost died from a rare blood disease and sought the help of Morbius, vampire and brilliant hematologist, that this changed. He gave her a serum that cured her disease and also allowed her to gain control of her transformative abilities. And voila, we were given the capable and in control She-Hulk that we still have today. Number 9. She almost died. Jennifer Walters actually became She-Hulk as a result of almost dying. When Bruce goes to find Jen in issue 1 of the Savage She-Hulk, we find out she's been practicing criminal law, and it is her involvement in the criminal world that gets her shot at for working to put criminals away. Bruce is with her at the time and works hard to keep cool so he can help Jen before she bleeds out. He breaks into a doctor's house conveniently across the street, where no one is home, and uses the doctor's medical equipment to give her an emergency blood transfusion. Whose blood does he use? Why, his own, of course. It's all he has at the time. Yeah, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief required in the first few pages of this issue. Anyways, while recovering in the hospital, the goons who shot her return to finish the job. When becoming enraged, she transforms into the She-Hulk. Talk about a frightening situation. Number 8. Her addiction. Walters has never really made it a secret in the comics that she prefers being the She-Hulk. In fact, the interesting thing about her relationship with being green versus her cousins is that while Bruce thinks of his Hulk ego as something that is a hindrance to his humanity, Jennifer thinks of it as an asset. She finds that she is more confident as She-Hulk. Keeping in mind she still also has a level head when she transforms, but still, it is kind of scary how much she loses herself in her transformation. Or at least thinks she does. In She-Hulk Volume 2 issue 19, we see her condemned as being a She-Hulk addict in court by Mallory Book, and from there Jennifer decides to explore what it is about herself as She-Hulk that she is addicted to. The sweet resolution to this horror story is she realizes that either way, she is still herself, and regardless of whether she is human or Hulk, she never backs down from a fight. Yay, confidence boosts. What was that?
Number 7. Breaking the fourth wall. So She-Hulk used to break the fourth wall. In fact, she's notable for being one of the first Marvel characters to do so, some say the first. She had meta-ness in her character and at times appeared to be aware that she was a comic book character and would most frequently make jokes about the comics code, which she was frequently accused of violating. This would add to the humor of her character, though she would never approach what Deadpool would later approach, years later. He wasn't like that when he was first introduced.
Number 6. Married to Man-Wolf. So, to me, it isn't super scary that she was in fact married to John Jameson, aka Man-Wolf. Just because he's a wolf doesn't mean he doesn't deserve some love, and the two were kind of a cute monster mash pair. The scary part to me about their marriage and love affair was that it was never real. I mean, it was real, they got married, but it only happened because they were both under the influence of StarFox's power. That's right, he made them feel love for each other and eventually get married. Once She-Hulk finds out about this in She-Hulk Volume 2, the same series in which she and John were actually shown to have fallen in love and get married, she ends up filing for a divorce and annulling their marriage. Could you imagine a world where you were forced to stay with a partner, in fact marry them, but you thought you had wanted to, only to find out that you were somehow manipulated into that? That sounds pretty terrifying to me. Not to mention, as sweet as John can be, he also spent a lot of their time together trying to get Jennifer to give up She-Hulk entirely. Not cool, John. And definitely not cool, StarFox.
Number 5. Unum. Unum is an interesting villain. She was actually created by the cosmic entity Enmity, out of remnants of other really powerful villains. And her sole purpose for existing is to end the existence of all female superheroes. Technically it's all heroes, but she's starting with female superheroes. She is a 10-foot tall tower of power wielding a giant axe, and she is honestly kind of scary. She first appeared in She-Hulk Cosmic Collision #1, in which she de-lifed one of the most powerful heroes on an alien planet called Yor. And then she jumped to Earth to come whack our lovely She-Hulk, who fights alongside Jacinda. Now, how can a being like this be destroyed by She-Hulk? Yeah, She-Hulk's strong, but I think it was her lawyering that was her superpower here, as she convinced Unum that Enmity is just using her, which caused Unum to rebel and destroy herself. Well played, Jen. Well played.
Number 4. Grey She-Hulk. Even though Bruce and Jen are very different kind of Hulks, sometimes their plights are one and the same. After the death of Bruce Banner in the Civil War II event, Jen was shaken to her core and became very connected with her darker side. More specifically, she went grey. If you're familiar with the Hulk but not as familiar with the Hulk family, you may think that doesn't sound so bad. After all, when Bruce typically goes grey, he becomes much more level-headed, smart, like Jen normally is when she's green. So what happens when Jennifer Walters goes grey? Well, she becomes more like Bruce's standard Green Hulk, a monster who's hard to connect with. And trust me when I tell you, this side of her is pretty scary. In Hulk Volume 5, which featured Jennifer Walters as the main character in the absence of Bruce, we get to see her deal with the monster within, a side that is not normally explored with her character. Also, it's just really well written, so yay!
Number 3. Vibranium. One of the strongest metals in the Marvel Universe. Vibranium is a substance that came from a meteorite thousands and thousands of years ago. Since its arrival, it has been a hot commodity. Not only is it very expensive, but it's also incredibly strong. It's most famous for being the metal that makes up Captain America's shield. The metal itself is strong enough to wound and kill She-Hulk. I mean, Cap can throw it right at any of the Hulks and knock them off their feet. It's very dangerous, but in the right hands, it's also great weapon.
Number 2. Survivor of Assault. In the newer Avengers series from 2018, we see She-Hulk wrestle with her appearance in issue 20. In this issue, we see her ugly side fighting her old version, her pinup side. Old She-Hulk berates new She-Hulk for being ugly, a stick in the mud, too serious. The two sides of herself end up getting so heated over the idea of what her identity should be that they devolve to blows over who is right. Jen also opens up about her feelings on being She-Hulk. Yeah, she's had fun and felt confident, and she's looked amazing, but she is fighting for freedom in this issue to be ugly, because of all the other stuff that she has had to deal with, namely sexual assault. She opens up about unwanted advances and having nude pictures of her published, and laments how her cousin Bruce has always envied her falsely, as although she was admired, she also has had to deal with a lot of sleazeballs groping her, something Bruce never seems to have to deal with. Ladies, in comics, it's hard. Number 1. Her and Bruce hooked up. Yeah, this almost happened in canon in one of the Incredible Hulk annuals, and everyone was pretty shocked. And then it actually happened. On an alternate Earth in Old Man Logan, and everyone was just straight up grossed out. While it isn't shown in the series, it is implied that Jen was the only one left for Bruce to mate with, but that still doesn't really excuse the behavior here. It's also never specified as to whether or not this interaction is consensual, though they have more than one kid together, so I certainly hope so. Ugh.
Number 10. The 90s movie. Starting off with something fun. There were many a cancelled 90s project, and even earlier actually, and each one is pretty fantastic in an awful kind of way. Though some of them we would have needed. Nicolas Cage's Superman. They've actually been trying to adapt the She-Hulk for years since her origin in 1980. There's been interest, and in the 90s we got close. This was after 2 failed TV projects. There was hopes for this movie. Larry Cohen was set to direct. You may know him from Cellular, Captivity, Phone Booth, The Stuff. 10 months after he was announced, Brigitte Nielsen was set to be She-Hulk. We got to the set photo stage and everything, but it never happened. 90s She-Hulk. I feel like that would have been a mess, which makes me want it more. Number 9. Supporting Tony during Civil War. Like I mentioned in the superhero couples you won't believe exist, Jennifer Walters and Tony Stark have a good relationship, and she ended up supporting him during Civil War, the first one, Civil War I, which was interesting. So Civil War boiled down to pro-superhero registration, Tony, and anti-superhero registration, Steve. Sometimes going over who sided with who and why could get real convoluted. I mean, yes, Jennifer is a lawyer, but at the same time her cousin is the Hulk, and she's always, or well used to be, supportive of him. So her supporting Tony despite his secret prisons with Reed was interesting, and we needed conflict. It can't just be Tony and Steve punching each other. Still, the pro-registration side was very much presented as wrong, and hence so were the people who supported it. There were claims that this argument was nuanced, which it was, but it wasn't presented that way. Number 8. Competing with Wonder Woman. So Marvel Comics has long had a bit of a chip on their shoulder that they don't have a female heroine exactly comparable to Wonder Woman. And for me, that's not a dig. Both companies have some amazing female characters, but Wonder Woman is very unique. For a time, there was hope that She-Hulk could be their Wonder Woman. Writer Peter David expressed as much, stating, "She-Hulk has the potential to be our Wonder Woman, a powerful female with a strong moral center and a determination to do what's right. She's also a unique combination of brains and brawn. The ideal She-Hulk story is one that plays on on both aspects of her makeup, the intelligence combined with her strength. Quote done. However, there's a little hitch in her origin that bothers modern Marvel, and in their minds keeps She-Hulk from achieving this status, which they appear to currently be trying to assign to Captain Marvel Carol Danvers, and it may result in some changes to She-Hulk's origin in the MCU, but more on that later.
Number 7. All the hate surrounding She-Hulk's Disney Plus series. One of the scariest things in my mind, as well as the silliest, is all the hate surrounding She-Hulk right now. Fortunately, it is being combated by as much love as fans of her comics can muster, as well as a personal Twitter welcome from the man who portrays her cousin himself in the MCU, Mark Ruffalo. But still, there are some people who were next level triggered by Disney's announcement surrounding the She-Hulk series. People are making comments involving how her show will just involve her making sandwiches in the kitchen, and I even read a comment where someone angrily wrote in all caps, "Hulk doesn't need to be a girl," as though they thought Disney was gender swapping the Hulk for the series. Another comment stated, "We have female Thor, female Hulk, what's next, Spider-Woman?" I hope so. I personally love Jessica Drew. These comments make me want to send these ignorant nerds to make me a sandwich in the kitchen while I read them some sensational She-Hulk. I'll share my sandwich with them too.
Number 6. She's beaten SENTRY. So She-Hulk is quite the powerhouse, which by the way is now Franklin Richards' superhero name. Fun fact. She-Hulk would accomplish this during Dark Reign and the 4-part series All New Savage She-Hulk. She ends up being enraged after SENTRY dismisses her in a fight, so she pummels him to the ground. This is quite impressive given the overpowered status that he occupies in the Marvel Universe. So for her to be able to do that, be afraid. Or perhaps question the power levels of the situation. Is this a Harley taking out Superman and the Flash situation? At separate times, not at the same time. Share your thoughts. I enjoy hearing from you. I really do.
Number 5. Hulk. Family. It's kind of everyone's weakness, but it's different for everyone. What I mean by that is, it can be a villain holding the ones you love hostage, or the one you love is so powerful that they can technically kill you. Even though Hulk and She-Hulk are family, it doesn't mean that they haven't fought over the years. Sometimes she is the one trying to calm Hulk down, or other times she is the one that has to take him on in a fight. During the storyline World War Hulk, Hulk almost killed She-Hulk during a battle. Now, at that point, Bruce was very, very far gone, and wouldn't normally harm his cousin, but She-Hulk was desperately trying to get through to him. Unfortunately, it didn't work, and it almost costed her life.
Number 4. Tearing Vision in half. So Amanda mentioned this in part 1, but let's get specific about how this happened. I mean, yes, Vision is a synthezoid, but it's still dramatic. Nobody likes getting torn in half. This occurred during the sensational She-Hulk run. So She-Hulk has been on many teams, and that includes the Avengers. After returning to that team, she would spend time with her fellow Avengers, such as Jack of Hearts, and she would just kind of passively absorb radiation off of him. This would over time lead to her being unable to control her changes or herself, and this would lead to her tearing Vision in half. Hulk tear, Hulk rip. It turned out that this wasn't Jack of Hearts' fault at all, but the Scarlet Witch and her abilities back when she was still a mutant. I will accept no substitutes. That retcon made my heart sad. But I digress. Wanda and Vision have a complicated relationship that is actually very far from romantic when you break it down. I don't know. I've never subtly influenced reality to have my husband torn in half. That's all I'm saying.
Number 3. Titania. Mary McFerrin, aka Titania, is the prime arch nemesis to Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk. She first appeared in Marvel Superhero Secret Wars number 3 and got her powers from Dr. Doom alongside Volcana, who is number 4. Her main thing is that she believed that she was the strongest woman on the planet, which was taken away from her after She-Hulk beat her silly in their first fight. Instead of just giving up and accepting her defeat, Mary began obsessively training to beat and be better than She-Hulk. While she came close so many times, I mean, she's the villain, so she is unfortunately fated to lose. She even came to possess the Power Stone at one point to fight She-Hulk, but again, she just couldn't quite cut it. Interestingly though, she actually is married to another villain on this list. One who has some interesting absorption powers. And together they joined Baron Zemo's Masters of Evil. She also has tried to live a normal life for a time, but that didn't work out. Too bad, so sad. Move on with your life. Come on, let's go.
Number 2. Fighting the Comics Code Authority. Now She-Hulk is known in many circles for being hot, sexy, big and green. She can bench press you and look hot doing it. I want to be bench pressed by the She-Hulk. But nowadays, this status has a bit of a complex relationship with fans. However, back in the day, it was seen by some as more of a sign of empowerment, because She-Hulk was fighting the Comics Code Authority. Established in 1954 as a result of Senate hearings following mass hysteria surrounding comic books and the link to juvenile delinquency, an unfounded link, just a hypothetical link. This was further exacerbated by Frederick Wertham's seduction of the innocent, which on top of policing violence in comics was quite critical of sexuality. The code was created so the industry could self-regulate or face government intervention. They chose self-regulation. This would create a panic around the presentation of women. For years there was a no cleavage or not too much skin unless they're evil. All kinds of subtle rules about how women could and couldn't be presented. One of the ways comic creators would fight back would be to reveal more of the woman. So her ripped costumes were actually a big FU to the comics code. Her naked cover, aside from being based off an extremely popular photo shoot of the time, was again an FU. You can't police female sexuality. Now for some this loses its punchline because it was largely pushed forward by men, but for others this was a big moment. She-Hulk has had a long history of being used to further ideas outside of her character itself, and that brings us to number 1. Number 1. Changing her origin controversy. Disney Plus has been threatening a change in origin for the She-Hulk. Now whether they do or don't is less interesting than the why behind it. The MCU has changed many origins to suit itself in its canon, so if it did it wouldn't be unprecedented. However, it is the why some people feel it should be changed that is fascinating. The She-Hulk originally gets her powers after being shot by some criminals that were involved in a case she was prosecuting. Jen is a criminal lawyer. To save her life, her cousin Bruce Banner gives her a blood transfusion. The gamma in his blood causes her to adopt Hulk-like characteristics, and she transforms and decides to embrace this and becomes the She-Hulk. Some feel that the fact that she gets her powers from a man is sexist and makes her less of a character, and so she doesn't stand on her own 2 feet, or at least does so less than other characters. While others feel She-Hulk is far more than her origin and it doesn't lessen her anyways, as she made the choice to be a hero. She could have done nothing, become a villain or hidden, but as established she was a lawyer and she wanted justice, so she was already doing things to make the world a better place. So her becoming a hero after an incident like this made sense. Others feel everybody is just far too focused on origin stories. Just throw us in head first. Open the show with her tearing Vision in half. Do you think She-Hulk's origin takes away her agency? Would it be better if she had gotten a blood transfusion from a woman, or just not at all? She was researching Hulk blood. Or would the same argument apply, that she's less of a hero because she's getting her powers from someone else? Or is she a legacy character? I mean, if we can have like Six Flashes and Dick, Jason, Tim, Steph, Damian, Kira if you stretch, Robins, why not She-Hulk? And the other Hulks now exist. Just side note, also tons of characters have weak origins and turned out fine. Even the Hulk's is just okay. It's iconic, but I survived a radioactive explosion. It's not exactly my parents are dead.
Number 10. Nicholas Trask. We're starting off this list with a regular human, but that doesn't mean he isn't important. Nicholas Trask is a crime lord and gangster, and it was his villainy that actually created the She-Hulk when she first appeared in Savage She-Hulk #1. Not only that, but he is actually responsible for the passing of Jennifer's mother and best friend. He ain't a good dude. When Jennifer was defending another gangster in court, one who was double-crossed by Trask, Trask nearly ended her life as well. And on the second attempt at her life, she was exposed to the gamma radiation that transformed her into She-Hulk. Similar to how her cousin Bruce Banner became the Hulk. But he's still just a plain old humie, so number 10 for you, Nicholas. Number 9. Clockwise. Anyone who messes around with time has a power that can be potentially very powerful. Clockwise was a time-traveling villain from the Earth 6023. While he is a regular human, he wears a special suit that gives him his powers of limited time travel back and forth through time. He also uses a weapon called the retroactive cannon, which gives him the ability to erase heroes from existence. A pretty alarming thing to be able to do, to say the least. When he first appeared in She-Hulk Volume 2 number 3, he infiltrated the Time Variance Authority. Yes, the TVA, while She-Hulk was there on trial, and using his cannon, he began eliminating some heroes. Luckily, She-Hulk was able to beat him, but we honestly don't know much else about him at all. I hope he shows up again because, I don't know, I think he's got some potential. Number 8. ULTIMA. First appearing in Savage She-Hulk #9, ULTIMA is one of She-Hulk's better rogues gallery members. ULTIMA Wordman, yes, that's her actual name, is the daughter of a cult leader named The Word, and she dated a man who was part of said cult called Randolph Harrington. Now unfortunately for ULTIMA, Randolph wasn't really a fan of cult life and wanted out. His parents hired Jennifer Walters as a lawyer to help, so obviously ULTIMA ain't too friendly with Miss Walters already. ULTIMA had super strength, speed, and durability, and is a really good hand-to-hand fighter, which she utilized to at least match Jennifer Walters in fights a few times. She could also use the 2 cults she had been a part of to help her in those fights, because having backup always helps. obviously. In the first few conflicts though, she ends up being paralyzed by She-Hulk. That didn't stop her as she just went away, recovered, and came back with a new So yeah, she is pretty dangerous for Miss Hulk.
Number 7. Red She-Hulk. She-Hulk is insanely powerful, and she can hold her own against a lot of people in the Marvel Universe. But even heroes sometimes lose fights, and that has happened to her. It's even more likely when the person you're fighting has very similar powers to you. In this case, Red She-Hulk. Betty Ross. She-Hulk and Red She-Hulk have a rivalry. One of the first times they fought, Red She-Hulk almost killed She-Hulk. People even thought she was dead, but she wasn't and came back stronger than ever. I mean, that's just comic book stories for you. She even ended up beating Red She-Hulk later on. But regardless, the two had an epic rivalry, with both of them beating each other at one point or another.
Number 6. Behemoth. Manfred Haller is a strange one, to say the least. Manfred was a hydraulics engineer who created an exoskeleton that gave its user super strength. But for some reason, he made it in the shape of an elephant. He first appeared in Savage She-Hulk number 17, when he proved the power of his exoskeleton by fighting She-Hulk and nearly defeating her before he stopped the fight. So he is clearly a very intelligent guy who made a pretty powerful invention. So it's kind of confusing to me as to why he would allow this exoskeleton tech to find its way onto the black market, prompting Stark Industries to run him out. After that whole debacle, he ended up coming into contact with a shard of a crystal of Sidorak, which turned the elephant exoskeleton into his actual exoskeleton, which is a form he can switch in and out of at will. He then returned as the villain known as Behemoth, or Man-Elephant. He is strange for sure, but do not underestimate the power of this guy.
Number 5. StarFox's defense. Even more terrifying is somehow Jennifer ended up as StarFox's defense lawyer. Granted, this was before she knew she was being manipulated, but really, Jennifer? This case involved a lot of instances of evidence against StarFox. It's made pretty clear that he was actually manipulating even the court the whole while. You might be thinking, I know what's happening here. When they had the trial later on Titan where She-Hulk found out about her false relationship with John, she was going to find out that StarFox was manipulating her the whole time. But no, they did not give her an easy way out. She actually discovered that while she had been influenced by StarFox in regards to her feelings about Man-Wolf, she had not been influenced into defending him or sleeping with him. Yikes! If anything, the way this whole StarFox sexual assault thing was handled and written is just scary in and of itself.
Number 4. Volcana. Marsha Rosenberg was alongside Mary McFerrin when Dr. Doom gave the two powers to fight for him. Marsha was given the power to transform into volcanic plasma, stone, or ash, which is honestly kind of really cool. But alongside that, she also got superhuman strength in her stone form as well as superhuman durability. Volcana would fight She-Hulk so many different times. But the villain's life wasn't for her. During Secret Wars, she actually had a relationship with the astronomically powerful molecule man Owen Reese. But not too much later, she returned to the life of scum and villainy, fighting She-Hulk again and losing again. These villains never learn, man, I'm telling you.
Number 3. WYATT WINGFOOT. We're actually going to talk about the abuses She-Hulk suffered here, but I wanted to name the number after WYATT because not only does he support her, but he doesn't get talked about enough. Except when he's trying to usurp the position of best friend to Johnny Storm from Spider-Man. Stop it. So She-Hulk met WYATT while she was on the Fantastic Four, during the period where the Thing had left, and he was there for her when some scuzzy things happened, such as a paparazzo taking her picture while she was sunbathing topless, and the only reason it didn't really fully get out there was because an editor color corrected her skin. She was later forced to strip naked by corrupt SHIELD agents, who then medically examined her to see if she could be left unsupervised or have to be followed around like her cousin, but this was really so that they could get spank material. Jen hadn't really encountered things like this before, so it freaked her out and obviously made her feel unsafe. Wyatt was there to help her through that, cause Wyatt's a dependable, sort of genuine nice guy, not a fake nice guy, except when he's trying to push out Peter. Let Peter have one friend who's not evil. He's earned it. These incidents are often referenced when we come to the digital era, and Jen calling out Bruce, her cousin the Hulk, for being jealous of her. Now Bruce and Jen have different experiences, but when you force me to compare the litany of horrors committed against her and him, she doesn't come out looking great in my opinion for calling him out for being jealous. Yeah, he might not know the whole story, fair enough, and be having a bit of the grass is greener, but Hulk got shot into space because he was such a problem. When he got there, he got to see the new people who eventually embraced him die. He was cut into pieces and kept in jars to see how far far his rejuvenation could extend. For years he lived on the street, hunted by a special task force. He now can never die. He's been feared by friends and foes alike. The amount of times he's been hated in canon far outweighs the times he's been loved. Oh yeah, and if he gets too smart, he risks going full maestro. In Elseworld stories, it's been established he will be the last creature alive on the earth. So yeah, I can see from his perspective being jealous of pretty much anybody else, even when bad things happen to them. I mean, would Jen want to be Bruce? And if so, why? Like that reporter who wants to be the Hulk and the Immortal Hulk? Like, girl, have you read all the Hulk? You should want to be someone with a good life. Like, I don't know, someone not in the Marvel Universe? Maybe Doom? Being Doom could be okay. Share your thoughts. I'm curious. Do you feel Jen was right to call out Bruce for being jealous of her? If so, why? I want to know. Because there's real world issue context and then there's Marvel canon context, and they can cause different responses.
Number 2. Absorbing Man. The man who would become this overpowered villain first appeared in Daredevil number 1, but it wasn't until Journey into Mystery number 114 that he gained his powers. Absorbing Man has the power to take on the properties of anything he touches. He was able to mimic the properties of Thor's hammer Mjolnir, the strength of Thor himself, and also the power of the Odin Force. And he has even become pure gamma energy at one point. It's honestly kind of ridiculous. In his fight with She-Hulk in She-Hulk Volume 2 number 23, She-Hulk actually reveals one of his main weaknesses. While he is able to control what he absorbs, he can't control it if there is like just too much of whatever thing is around him. So, for example, like if you put Carl here in a room and you fill that room up with like a ton of oranges or something like that, Carl wouldn't be able to resist taking on the properties of an orange. So now you can think about how that works, because I've had an absolute enough of this. Okay, let's move on. Number 1. Abomination. Another gamma mutate. Emil Blonsky has historically mainly been a Hulk villain, and he still is, but him and She-Hulk have had their fair share of run-ins. With the new She-Hulk show coming up, in which Abomination will play a large part, it's only fair to mention him. And as he is an incredibly powerful villain that has given even the Hulk some trouble, he deserves to be here. Apart from his immense strength and durability, Abomination can generate toxic gamma radiation that's lethal to anyone who comes close, besides other gamma mutates, like She-Hulk. He also has an incredibly strong healing factor that gives him a massive leg up in battle. He first appeared in Tales to Astonish number 90 as a Russian spy who intentionally gammas himself into becoming this monstrous thing. So as a spy, he also comes with all that knowledge and combat experience. Not to mention that he retained all of his intelligence, because I mean, can't turn back into a human, so it's only fair that he's at least smart too, I guess.
Number 10. Magic. Magic is a tricky thing in the comic world. It can really affect people, including She-Hulk. Over the years, people have used magic when fighting basically any of the Hulks, be it transporting them to another dimension or Thor's hammer. Certain types of magic can really harm her. Although, just because it hurts her doesn't mean it will stop her forever. So, whoever is casting these magic spells better be ready, because She-Hulk will not go down easily. Number 9. Gas. Gas in the Marvel Universe isn't the same as gas in the real world. Certain types of gas has the ability to knock out or even kill superpowered beings as strong as She-Hulk. I mean, there have been multiple instances where gas has been used to knock her out or even the Hulk. Some are just that powerful, although She-Hulk has been known to snap back very quickly from its effects. Number 8. Mind control. Mind control is very tricky. I mean, it can turn some of the strongest, most likable characters into mindless zombies doing the bidding of some evil villain. She-Hulk is no different. Yes, even Hulks have been known to be mind controlled and go even crazier than they already are. And a mind-controlled being with the strength of She-Hulk is a very scary thought indeed.
Number 7. Ruby Thursday. Every hero has got their weirdo villains. Honestly, She-Hulk has a bunch, but the one that gave me the most pause would be Thursday Rubenstein, aka Ruby Thursday. Her powers are, well, interesting. Ruby's head has been somehow replaced with a mass of organic circuitry that allows her to fire energy blasts, create tentacles and blunt weapons, shapeshift into disguises and other forms, and her head can even completely detach from her body and fly around dodging attacks and stuff. All those powers are just from her head, in case that wasn't clear. She is also considered to be one of the most intelligent people on the planet, great with engineering, physics, and computers. Ruby Thursday first appeared in Defenders number 32 as part of a team of villains called the Headmen, and after her fights against the Defenders, Ruby appeared in Sensational She-Hulk number 1. In this story, She-Hulk and Spider-Man find out that Ruby has decided to try and steal She-Hulk's body in order to replace a fellow member of the Headmen's body. right? That makes sense. And after they get defeated, her and the headman would later try the exact same thing, but with Spider-Man's body instead. I thought she was smart. Doesn't really seem like it.
Number 6. Nanites. At one point in the comics, Tony Stark depowered Jennifer by using a specific form of nanotechnology called spin tech. After being injected with them, she became essentially human. She still looked green, but she didn't have all of her physical strength. Tony did this because he was worried that, she would try to go after him and all the others after she found out what happened to her cousin. So instead of using her strength, she ended up using another powerful resource, her mind. And she ended up taking him to court. Eventually, she did end up getting her powers back as well, so it all ended well for Jennifer.
Number 5, acupressure. So She-Hulk has a host of skills, because she isn't as powerful as the Hulk all the time, depends what canon we're working on. It's a bit of a trade-off. She has more control than Bruce, usually. But because of this, she has learned other skills, such as hand-to-hand combat. She was trained by Captain America and also Gamora. She also has an extensive knowledge of acupressure points, which in comic book terms means you have about 20 extra points to approaching God tier. She would use this on Abomination, a character who is named as such because of the fact that Stan Lee noticed that no other character had that name. Deep. But She-Hulk is called She-Hulk, so still, acupressure is yet another weapon in She-Hulk's mighty arsenal.
Number 4, blood disease. Jennifer got her start because of blood. She was dying and needed blood, and of course the only suitable donor was her cousin, Bruce Banner. That is what ended up changing her into the She-Hulk. Although later on she ended up contracting a blood disease. Jennifer would have died if it wasn't for the help of Michael Morbius, who we all know is an expert when it comes to blood, given his being a vampire and all. Blood seems to be something that will continue to terrorize Jennifer as her life goes on. But who knows, maybe someday that will change. But since it's linked to her origin, I kind of think it's going to be something that will keep popping up every now and then.
Number 3, that time she ripped Vision in half. If you needed more proof that She-Hulk is someone you don't want to mess with, here it is. Before the events of House of M and Avengers Disassembled, She-Hulk is influenced by Scarlet Witch and flies into a rage and becomes the villain for a few issues. By the way, in case you were unaware, the more angry She-Hulk gets, the stronger she gets. She even rips Vision in half. Granted, he's kinda like dead at the time anyways, but still, she rages real hard, knocking down Cap without so much as a second thought. Boom, take that, Cap.
Number 2, adamantium. Well, we just talked about vibranium, but now to Marvel's other strongest metal, adamantium. Everyone knows adamantium is famous for being the substance that was fused with Wolverine's skeleton. That's part of the reason it's so hard to kill him. Adamantium is super strong. I mean, his claws are able to pierce the body of She-Hulk. Wolverine has fought Hulks over the years, and there's a reason that he is still standing. And why She-Hulk, and every other Hulk for that matter, should be nervous when they're fighting anyone that is using adamantium as a weapon. Gamma radiation. In the comics, She-Hulk has been affected by radiation a few times. I mean, every Hulk has. If someone in their position is exposed to even more gamma radiation, it can affect them in a variety of ways. It can make them go crazy, or in Jennifer's case, can make her lose control of her Hulk form. Usually, she always, just stays in it. But at one point, she was exposed to way too much radiation. She couldn't control herself, and was constantly changing back between her human form and her Hulk form. Even a gamma bomb has killed some Hulks before, so it's definitely something that she needs to be careful of. I mean, all Hulks do.